Hello everybody, welcome back. Um, First of all, don't worry about the sling. It's nothing major. For those of you who are actual friends of mine, don't worry about it. It's severe tennis elbow. I haven't played badminton in years, so we have no idea how it happened, but it is what it is. And I'm always reminding you guys that psychics and priests and everything else, we're still human and shit happens. So anyway, tonight what I wanted to talk about was the Faces of Loki, a little introduction to that. I mentioned here a while back my message cards that I created based on the Faces of Loki, and that came from my blog that I started actually only about 2 years ago. I've got a few of those faces on there. I think there's about 7 on there now out of 12. Some of those are going to be rehashed, added to, etc. But I wanted to come on and do like a little introduction to those faces and the way I understand them, the way that it's kind of come to me. And later I'll do other videos that are focused more on each one of those aspects of Loki. So we'll get started. Actually, my coffee's done, so give me a moment. I'll fix that, and then we'll get started. Because, I need my caffeine. Okay, that's better. So we want to start with what the faces of Loki are. What does that mean? So for me, one thing everybody knows about Loki, even if all you know is Marvel Loki, is he is a shapeshifter. So even though we know, we as people cannot literally shapeshift. There is a form of shapeshifting that is done spiritually. A lot of people do this. There's, stories of people shifting or becoming a spiritual essence of another animal. People who, like the sort of like the werewolf stories, things of that nature. But what I'm looking at is more of the general public, not necessarily people who practice certain types of magic or anything like that, but just the way we as people can be shapeshifters. And one of those is the mask we wear every day. We go through things in our lives where we'll put on that mask and pretend we are feeling, doing, being whatever it is we feel we need to be. How many of us would get fired from our jobs or worse if we were to walk around telling everyone everything we feel and think at every moment? Those of you who work in the general public, those of us who work with, restaurants, retail, we all know very well. You don't always show people at your job exactly what you're thinking and feeling. And so this is one of those cases of the mask that we wear as people. Loki is one who teaches us that. He can teach us how to put on different faces for what is needed. So in thinking of that, that is how I come about this whole Faces of Loki blog idea. So the way I've got it divided up, not necessarily in any particular order, but we have 12 aspects as far as the way I see him. That is the bound one, truth speaker, an oath keeper. Yes, that's a thing. World breaker, the fiery one. He's both bringer of chaos and calm in the chaos. He is the lover of outcast. He is Scarlip, and he is the mirror holder. and he is also the problem solver. A lot of those kind of intertwine, and different aspects can work together to get what we need or what he needed in the lore. So a little description of those. So the bound one. This one is one I really like. He's the one that is, to me, resilience. And what this comes from, and especially the term bound, is from in the lore when he is bound to the rock in the chains of his own son's entrails. Yeah, many Locans don't like that story. But he's bound until Ragnarok. Ragnarok comes only after, the chains are all broken, and then here we go with the final battle. The bound one is the resilience during that waiting time. In the lore, we're told that Loki is writhing and shaking the chains and, not only trying to break free, but the pain from the venom dripping on him, and it shakes so hard that it shakes the ground, and that is where earthquakes come from. But so that is an example of resilience that comes from the bound one. And then we go on to the truth speaker and oath keeper. This one is a fun one because most people have been taught Loki is nothing but a liar, and in any community, whether it's online or physical, when people are against Loki, one of the first things that comes out of their mouth is, oh, he's an oath breaker. Loki never once ever in the lore actually broke an oath. He did, however, call people out when they broke theirs. In Locasena, again, just before they tied him up, he went to the feast and called out Odin for breaking his oath that he made to Loki. That he had made an oath he would never take food or drink at a table that Loki was not welcome at. So when he came in and he was told he wasn't welcome, he looked right at Odin, who was already eating and drinking, and said, well, what about that oath you made? So yeah, that was pretty much why he was allowed to stay, because he called him out. And in that story, he also told a lot of truths that they did not want to admit to. They all kept coming at him with one thing he did wrong. It wasn't even that wrong. No, it wasn't Balder. They were talking about, well, you did this thing that was kind of girly. Yeah, okay, and you did this, and you did this, and you did this, and you did this. That is what he got bound for. So that's the truth speaker. Oath keeper. We'll look again further when we get to that particular face of Loki at not only did he call out Odin for breaking his oath, but he personally never broke one. And there's even a couple of cases where some of the trouble he got in that supposedly was his fault was because, yeah, air quotes are really hard when you got one hand. Sorry, I'm silly. But anyway, some of the trouble he got into that was supposedly his fault was actually cases of the ones that were bad and were causing issues knew he would not break an oath, and they made him oath to do a thing or give them a thing that they wanted, and that's how the trouble started. Because he was being threatened at times with his life, and the only way to survive that was making an oath to give them whatever they want, and they did that because they knew Loki would not break an oath. We'll go further into that, but Jotun are also known for making you keep your oaths, like the whole race of the Jotun. Odin even mentions that. at one point when he broke an oath, yet again, to a Jotun maid. And he literally was waiting for them to arrive because he knew that they took oaths seriously. Uh, you know, next aspect, again, these are not in any particular order. The World Breaker. That one is one, even in the Locayan community, many of us do not share with each other unless we're really close. What happens with us when we are dealing with him, because he is the one when the chains are broken. He is the one that leads in Ragnarok and basically throws the whole world upside down. So for personal spiritual aspects in our personal lives, when there's growth that is needed and we sit on our butts too long and not doing it, Loki will come in as World Breaker and he will throw things completely upside down until we learn the lesson, and it's a sink or swim situation. So that's kind of what World Breaker is. He's the one that's like just broke the chains. Shit's got to change. It's got to be done. You're not doing it. And things just get flipped over, even destroyed, in order for you to grow. And for, or in the case of Ragnarok, for the new world to come out and grow. It's a destruction for the purpose of growth. And that is what the World Breaker does. The bringer of chaos and the calm in the chaos. Bringer of chaos can go hand in hand with the World Breaker quite a lot. Then there's also minor times when it's not so much like world-breaking destruction, but everything is a little bit, it's getting chaotic, it's getting confusing, and it too is a way for us to see what needs change in our lives. That's the purpose of Loki's chaos. A lot of people go around trying to say they're Locayan. Really, they're just a bunch of edgelords that want to do chaos for the sake of chaos. And that is not what Loki or true chaos in any form is about. Chaos is not just for the sake of chaos. It is not just for, doing what you want when you want. The chaos that comes from Loki, spiritual chaos of any type, whether you're Locayan or, even other pantheons, whatever the case. Yes, even Satanist. Chaos is the opposite of order. Sometimes we have things in an order they don't need to be in, and we need the chaos to come and shake it around so that we can put it in a different order. It is simply a matter of balance, and again, for the purpose of change. Chaos for needed change, and Loki does that quite a bit. We'll see that. We'll look into that more. The calm and the chaos, that is the part where things happen, and again, now that we're in the chaos, what do we do about it? So sometimes we need Loki to help us bring the chaos in. And then other times, he can help us sit still in the chaos, like in the eye of the storm, where it's solid and still, and help us figure out how to get through it. Help us kind of look at the big picture. He did that in the lore as well. There were plenty of cases where things were going on that were not good. The Aesir just naturally blame Loki or Jotun or whatever. Nothing was ever their fault, apparently. And when they did that, 9 times out of 10, if there was a problem, they would call Loki. They'd say, oh, we're sure you had something to do with this, so you go fix it. Whether there's any real proof or not that he did it. And yet, he would go figure out a way to fix it. And that is what the calm and the chaos is in my little aspects of Loki scenarios. Where he will go in and think his way through. Stop, pause, think. Just because everything around us is chaotic, sometimes that doesn't mean that we have to be. And God, honestly, to me, sometimes that position sucks more than the chaos. The call to just sit still and be. And see your way through it. And Loki can help with that. He can help make a game plan. If there's anything anybody knows about Loki, he's smart, he's clever, he's cunning, he can find a way through. But we have to sit calmly before we can see that. So that's who that is. Scarlet. Scarlet is in reference to the story of his lips being sewn shut. Now, this one, there's a lot of UPG in all of these. There really is. But in the Scarlet, there's a little more because, people still, again, will claim that he had his lips sewn for being a liar. No. Actually, he never told a lie either. He would tell you half the truth, maybe. And that applies to this story as well because he made a bet with the dwarves and there's going to be a competition, he said, in Asgard where you guys can make your gifts and then these guys are going to make theirs and there's going to be a competition in Asgard to see whose gifts are the best. And he made a bet with them. He made a bet with one of the dwarves and said, well, I think, so-and-so's going to win and not you. And so, he ends up losing the bet. Of course, he was sneaky enough to get out of it, to get out of what would have been literally losing his head. So as payback for that, they did allow Brock to sew his mouth shut for his sneaky wording. It was not lying. He did not lie. There was going to be a competition in Asgard to see whose gifts were better. Loki just didn't tell him it was his idea or that he just came up with it. But there was, actually a competition. So there you go. Aside from that and the one time with Elon and the apples, there's no record of him really telling a lie. But the Scarlet, so the UPG comes in there with, what can we learn from this mouth being sewn shut? For a lot of people it is speak your truth. Again, these aspects kind of mingle together. He was being cunning and they didn't like it because he got out of shit that way. So that's, another aspect of it. Like, the Scarlet is a combination of either, speaking your truth, whether people want to hear it or not, and also the need to, at times, keep your mouth shut and not tell what you're really up to, what you're doing, until the time is right. Then we have the Lover of Outcast. This one's one of my favorites. And a lot of people, the Nokians, as we call it, those who are against following Loki, and others, a lot of them will talk about Loki's feminine side, Loki's more sexual side, Loki's anything that falls under the LGBTQ plus category, they kind of throw at Loki as that's his thing and it's bad, and it's not. But there's more to it than that as far as the aspect of Loki that is the lover of chaos. Sorry. Okay, I'm listening. The lover of outcast. There's also the fact that he himself is an outcast. Maybe they didn't like throw him out of Asgard early on. We know they did later, again, like the binding. But there were many times he was kind of run off. There were times that he was sent out to take care of their fuck ups. And basically anything that went wrong, again, was somehow just assumed to be Loki's fault. And the lore even words it that way. It actually says they assumed Loki did this, or they presumed, or they thought it must have been. There's nothing that actually says they have evidence when they made that decision. It was literally, okay, here's all the Aesir's sitting around trying to figure out who did something wrong, and hell, let's blame it on the Jotun. So Loki is one who people of minorities, people of various groups that are known to be outcast, they will cling to him. He will cling to them. Loki he does have a way of collecting the oddballs, I guess you can say, and I appreciate that. I really do, because there are a lot of people who feel from Loki, even in studying the lore, outside of their own UPG, there's still aspects of Loki that, like, okay, he gets it. He understands. Again, he himself was thrown out. He was kind of an outcast. He really didn't stay put in Asgard. He kind of roamed. He never really had a full home. And so a lot of people do associate him with being the outcast. And so a lot of those who follow him, or who are called to follow him, you will notice, are people who fall in that category. Anything from people who have been in toxic relationships, people who were the black sheep in their family. Black sheep also goes back to the truth speaker, because a lot of times we know the black sheep of the family is the one that like sees through your shit and calls you out on it, and then that was what Loki did. So he goes to those people. Again, LGBTQ plus, whether you're, gay or trans or gender fluid or whatever, Loki does not care. He is not one to worry about those things. I mean, in a way, you could say Loki was pretty and he knew it. He was described as being pleasing to look at. There's no real reference of him being like super sexual. But people, have kind of picked up that UPG, and it works for them, and that's okay. But the point being is him being an outcast himself. Him being the one who is different among the others. There were other Jotun that stayed in Asgard that had places, almost as high as the Aesir themselves. And those few were there either by marriage or by, some alliance they had with the Aesir that Loki wouldn't do. So again, he was the outcast. Because he wasn't them, and he wasn't gonna just go along with every little thing they did. He helped them a lot. And they still did this. They still, used his own children to imprison him. So again, he has a sweet spot for the outcast. Then we have the problem solver. Again, that goes back to how many times that he was sent out as the one to fix the problem. We have the, the whole deal with the apples and yeah, that one he did kind of ignore it, but I think he knew they were going to be mad. Honestly, I can understand that. I really can. I can understand why they'd be mad. Um, but again, he was threatened with his life, and it was like, okay, do that or he was going to die. So, what would you do, really? Uh, but, after they figured that out, they figured out what had happened, where she was, and it was Loki that was sent to fix it. And Loki figured out how to fix it. He came up with the plan. Same way with the gifts that he brought to the Aesir when we were talking about the Scarlet and that story. That whole reason for going there, yes, he had cut off Sif's hair, and Thor found out and got mad and threatened him. No, he was like, oh, I know exactly where to go. I'll go fix this. So again, he fixes things. So he is a problem solver. He can look and think things through. He did the same thing with, the wall around Asgard when the builder got angry. That is what he does. They saw the builder was going to be, he was going to finish on time. They were going to lose their bat. They were going to lose Fred. They were going to lose the sun. And they assumed Loki had just made the builder come make this arrangement. So they sent Loki to fix it. And he did. And then what thanks does he get? Well, let's see. He gave birth to a horse that Odin now uses as his own. And now, even to this day, people do just like the Aesir did, talking about, oh, well, you gave birth just like a woman would. There really wasn't a lot of options. He had to lure the horse away somehow. But he figured it out, and that was the point. Everything they sent him to do, he figured out. So he is a problem solver. And then there's the mirror holder. This one also goes hand in hand with the truth speaker. Whereas the mirror holder is one that, even though there's not a lot in the lore that goes with it, it's just an aspect a lot of people picked up over the years, working with Loki, working with, others in the Lokian community, even in the heathen community at large. Loki has a way of using his people, sometimes, as mirrors. And what that means is there are places and groups and things and situations in life that are very much like what happened to Loki at the feast, in Asgard in general, where people will be doing things wrong that they shouldn't, and they'll start pointing their fingers at you to distract from what they are doing. That's a common thing that we see, not even in spiritual, situations, just in life in general. There are people who will look at you and your one or two flaws and point them out extensively to distract from their own wrongdoings, their own issues. And in the process, a lot of times, they'll add to it and start accusing you of things you're not even doing that they, in fact, are doing. We've all heard the story like the person who accuses their partner of cheating all the time when really they're the one cheating. Common, happens all the time. So there's this mirror effect where we don't know why. Maybe it's just Loki himself knows we can handle it. Maybe it's just an aura, who knows. So we'll dive into that later when we get there. But the point being is there is an aspect of the mirror holder where people will look at little Lokians and go, oh, well, I see this in you, when it's really them. And they'll yell at you for shit they did. They'll do wrong. It's somehow your fault. And what they're doing is they're seeing their bad shit inside you, which Loki does at the feast. He told them all what they were doing wrong. And he still held back, and he told a lot. There was way more he could say. And sometimes we are the ones who will project that to them and show them what they're really doing. And that goes along with, again, the truth speaker and the mirror holder kind of go hand in hand, because sometimes it is our job to look at people and say, no, this is what's really going on. I know it, you know it, and I'm not going to stand here silent while you do it. So that's the mirror holder. At the same time, he sometimes gives us mirrors to look at. When we are in weird situations, when we are doing things we shouldn't, whatever the case may be, there are times when we will be given something to look at, something we see that bothers us. And what's happening is we're being shown what's going on in our own lives that we want to ignore. Things we're not addressing in ourselves, in our lives. And, it could be you see someone you care about going through, a bad situation with, say, toxic relatives. And then you suddenly stop and look in the process and go, wow, the stuff they're doing is stuff I've gone through too. Stuff mine have done to me. And now I have to focus on getting my own self away from my end. And, it's one of those cases where we look at other people, we see things going on that are an issue, and we're trying to help them, and then we realize that we too have a similar problem, or a problem in the same area, and we have to change it. So a lot of times Loki will be the guy that jumps in and sends us those mirrors to look at. I've been there. I've known people who have sat and complained in my own life. Oh, look, your family's done this to you and this to you and this to you, and at the same time they're living with people who do that to them. I've been the one who would tell people, oh, don't go back to terrible stuff, don't go back, and I went back. There's been people who will do awful things, and you'll go to the people they hurt, and you're trying to tell them how to get better and how to get away from it, whatever the situation is. And then you suddenly realize, wow, I need to listen to my own self. The pot calling the kettle black scenario. And so that's what the mirror holder does. It is always either people using you and seeing things in you, or you making them see somehow what they are really doing, the things they need to change. Somehow you are the mirror that makes them see it. And then there are other times they are the mirrors for you, where you look and go, oh yeah, I need to change that. So that's the mirror holder. And that one gets really deep. So I'm going to get off that topic for now, because I've spent more time than I meant to here. And so finally, the last one, the last aspect of Loki I have is the fiery one. There's very few things that associate him with fire. In the sense of, we'll say, like people say Freya is a goddess of beauty or whatever. And, there's references to that. Loki, it wasn't put with fire per se. Loki he's wildfire. So some people think it's a connection to that and confusion there. However, there are stories where Loki is, building a fire. Or Loki is getting, something near fire. The hammer being short enough that Thor can just kind of wield it in his hands was, because Loki made the fire not as hot as it needed to be. There was fire involved in the story of the God's treasures. There was fire involved in the story when the eagle stole him away and made him swear to bring Eden and her apples. He was building a fire. So there are aspects there. We also have, again, Ragnarok. We know he helps lead in to that, and fire is involved. But then there's also, for me personally, that fiery aspect of him that people look at. Just a fiery passion, I guess you could say, because nothing he did was ever halfway. So that fiery passion is what I like to look at when I consider the fiery one, the aspect of Loki. And again, yeah, Trickster. That was the other one. I knew there was one more. I really don't deal with that one a lot, and so I kind of, for me, I don't focus on that one. I mean, a lot of people do focus on the Trickster. The Trickster is the one he is most known for. The thing is, there's a difference between prankster and a trickster. Loki didn't really do pranks. So people take the trickster aspect and they think of it as, oh yeah, fun jokes, haha, let's have fun. Yeah, Loki likes to have fun, of course. That's kind of a standard thing we know. UPG, really, to be honest, or PCPG is, common. Common UPG amongst many people. But trickster is when the tricks, so to speak, are for a purpose. They are an archetype all their own, that they do things for a reason. We don't have jokes just to be funny. With the exception of the goat. And that story too, even though it was funny, and yes, many of us think that he probably, enjoyed it. But the point being, there was still reason for it. He wasn't doing it just at random to be funny. It was because that was part of the payback. They had to make Scotty laugh. If they did not, they did not fulfill their end of the bargain, and she had the right to kill somebody. So, yeah, he did what he had to make her laugh. Sif's hair being cut is really the only thing we have a reference to that was him just being mischievous, supposedly. No reason given why he did it or when he did it. We'll get to that later too, because I have some theories. But point being, Trickster is not a prankster. There's no reference to Loki just running around being funny and making jokes. There's just not. There is reference to him being sneaky and cunning and doing things one might view as tricks as a way to get something done. It was not just a prank for the sake of a prank. It's not being funny just to be funny. And that's what the trickster does. He does, there still has to be a reason. So we'll look into that. The main thing with Loki is so many people, and that's part of why I started this blogging to begin with, is there are so many people who think he is only certain things and that's it. He is only the fun prankster, trickster, two different things, God. But, people always look at him as he's always either the, he's the fun and goofy and joking trickster in these people's eyes, or he is the, chaos for, just for the sake of chaos, or he is, evil, or there's so many things that people associate him with, but when they do it from a perspective of he is only these one or two things. He, like any other god, is a lot of things. And I'll touch on that more too later. But the point being, no god in any pantheon is actually described in the mythology that goes along with them as being, so-and-so god of so-and-so. Freya, goddess of beauty. No. She was beautiful. A lot of people wanted her, so we people call her a goddess of beauty. The people who followed them looked at these aspects of them and decided to call them these things. And the same is true with Loki. There are these aspects of him that are part of who he is. But the idea of any deity being all this one thing or god of, those are names we applied to them to help our understanding of them and teaching them. It is not in the lore that actually says, even Greek, nothing says Zeus is god of lightning. Zeus is a god that uses lightning. Odin is god of wisdom. Odin is a god that happens to have an affection for wisdom. These are terms we've created. And so when people talk about the things people are gods of, they start to wrap them all into this one little ball. And I mean all of them. For me, I focus on this one because I am Lokian. Loki is my patron. So he's the one that I'm really, starting off with. He's the one I give the most focus to. So that's why I'm doing the topic on him and his faces and his aspects. But you could really do it with any deity out there. You really could. Hell, Odin, yes, I love his wisdom. He's also a bit of a trickster too. He did it many times. There's, again, Greek, Egyptian, they all have that in common, where they all have different aspects that people tend to bundle up into one. So for me, when I hear people talk about Loki is a god of chaos, Loki is a trickster god. Loki's more than that. Every god is more than that. So that is why I'm doing this. That is why I want to examine the different faces of Loki. I would encourage people from other practices and pantheons to do the same thing or similar with their patrons, their deities they work with, and get to know all the aspects and break them, break it down and look at it and really appreciate your gods as more than God of this one thing. Get to know them deeply. And it will really help, not only you and your practice, but by you knowing these things and studying these things, and then you can discuss it with others in your path, and then they can grow and learn from the things you have. And you'll find that a lot of people really do look at these things, but nobody wants to talk about it because, that's just common. And so I figured it's good. Get to know your gods. For me, that is Loki. So that's all I have for now. That's, again, an introduction. I did not mean to take this long. I hope to the gods that I do not take this long on all of the various aspects when we do them one at a time. I'll try. But that's my main point. Loki is more than chaos. Loki is more than a shapeshifter. But the fact that he's a shapeshifter makes it easier for us to examine him from the view of the various aspects. So that's what we got. Not sure when I'm going to start. Probably next week. Doing at least one a week on the various aspects and faces of Loki. You can go to nixreadings.com if you want to read the typed blogs, what are there so far. And again, that is NIKKS, nixreadings.com. You can find all my blogs there. So, y'all have a great night. I hope to hear from you soon, and I will see you as quickly as I can. This weekend I'm still doing the card pull. The general reading is just going to be one-handed. So, we'll talk to you soon. Y'all have a great night. Bye-bye.